Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, on AM 560, The Answer. Tune in every week at 5 for an informative discussion about IRS obligations, credit card debt, mortgage default, collection activity, and how to resolve these legal issues using tax resolution, debt settlement, mortgage loan modification, foreclosure defense, and bankruptcy. Your host is Stephen Leahy, a Chicago attorney and the principal at OPM Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, P.C. Stephen is the author of Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. IRS and debt issues are serious, but there is hope. There are resolutions. So get ready and take notes during the IRS Radio Hour. And now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Hello, Chicago, and I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour. We help people dealing with IRS problems, audits, levies, liens, garnishments, collections, and payroll tax issues. We also deal with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and other related issues. So if you have any of these problems, or if you know someone who does, you should contact me. And my phone number is 312-664-6649, or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. I want to introduce my co-host, Jim Leahy.
Hello, everybody. If it's Sunday at 5, that means that it's the IRS Radio Hour. So welcome back. It's another week of fun and frolic, I guess. We're doing a...
It was an exciting week.
It was an exciting week. As a matter of fact, let's get into that.
Well, let's talk about what happened last week first, because last Sunday was Father's Day.
Yes, and it was also the Army's birthday, and it was Flag Day. We forgot to... we were remiss in not mentioning last week that Flag Day was here, and as we like to do, we like to explain some of these things and why we're celebrating them. So Flag Day is the commemoration of the adoption of the flag. It was adopted on June 14th, 1777. It was first became a holiday, or brought to everybody's attention, by Woodrow Wilson in 1916. Mm-hmm. And in 1947, it was made into a commemoration. It's not really a holiday. It's not a national holiday.
1949.
1949, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much. And so it's a commemoration.
Get your facts right.
Well, that's true. I must have wrote it wrong. Anyway, it's a commemoration, not a holiday. So, but it's a day for people to remember the flag and what it stands for and put it out. So,
and it just so happens that it's the same day as the Continental Army was established
2 years earlier.
2 years earlier.
Now, also last week, this show and this radio station, as a matter of fact, lost a good friend, Jack Roser. He's Champion News. He's also Auto Engineering. He was Family Taxpayers.
Has a show right here on
he has a show
AM
here on
560.
Yes, he's been on for years here. He hosted TCOM. He's hosted many things. Without Jack, and Jack and I have been friends since from the late 90s, right after he ran for governor against, I had met him right after he ran for governor against Jim Edgar. Family Taxpayers was a federation of Family Taxpayer Federation, or was a group that he started. It's a foundation now. He, dare I say, was the conservative movement in Illinois. I mean, he helped fund it. I worked with him through a couple of campaigns. Joe Wiegand worked for him, and when he was executive director, and we ran campaigns together. Then afterwards, I was lucky enough to be able to go out to Auto Engineering and be in Liberty Hall with Jack, and he started the Republican Renaissance PAC, and he was running a bunch. We had a lot of things going, and I would sit in that office, and the phone would ring, and it'd be the senator from Alabama or the senator from here. I sat in there and watched Danny Davis walk in to ask Jack for money. I saw Bernie Stone came in. But the thing about Jack is he's Rick Perry was in there, Newt Gingrich. It was just a cavalcade of just names, and they would come in to see Jack, and Jack would treat everybody the same. He would treat somebody running for president the same as he treated somebody running for the library board. As a matter of fact, the library board person would probably get a little bit more attention because Jack was saying how important it was to be a committeeman, to be in your neighborhood, to make sure that he started some charter schools on his own. He went down into the south side of Chicago and found a African American Catholic school and 100% African American, and he would slip them money without people knowing. He never had any fanfare about it. He never said anything about it. People would come in. As I said, Jack was just remarkable.
Yeah, he will be missed.
He will be. And people in Carpentersville, they should put up a statue of him because he changed the operation of where he was. Auto engineering has now been redone, and it looks like it did 150 years ago. It's all been redone. It's right on the river. He bought up all the land along the river and then turned it into a park. He bought all the delinquent houses around, rehabbed them all, and sold them to the people who work for him. He has 500 people working for auto engineering. I could go on. The man was 90 years old, so we can go on forever about him. Mm-hmm. But there was one thing, there was a little toast that I had. When he found out, when Jack was Irish, and Jack would find out you were Irish, he would always tell you, I'm half Irish, so don't be offended when I'm telling you these jokes. And he would tell you jokes. And I had a toast that I said to him that he loved, and it was, may those who love us. May those who don't, let God turn their hearts. If he can't turn their hearts, let them turn their ankles so we can know them by their limp. So God bless you, Jack Roser.
God bless Jack Roser.
May you be in heaven a half hour before the devil knows you're dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a fitting tribute. He certainly deserves it, and we're going to miss him.
We'll miss you a lot.
So last week was also I mentioned on the show was the Deerfield wood bat tournament.
That's right.
Bat tournament, and my son's 13U won the championship. Unbelievable! It was a great tournament. Yeah, it was a great tournament. It really was. I love that tournament. So but what are we going to talk about this week? What's on the news this week? Now, having said that, I know there's lots in the news. So
there is a lot in the news this week. I don't think that there is no holiday today to talk about, but what there is plenty. There is plenty of information coming out of the IRS, and we have our continuing saga, mm-hmm. and we have plenty of that. We also have.
I'm going to talk about compliance.
That's right.
As my blog
last
post
week,
this week.
Oh, yeah, compliance. So everything this week is mostly about the IRS. But last week we said we would.
Since it's the IRS Radio Hour.
Well, this time it's the IRS
saga.
Yeah. Well, it's more of their dastardly fiends this week instead of being on our side. So I don't
know if they're ever on our side, and that's what I always tell people is that you always have to be careful because they try to appear that they're on your side, and they wind up sticking a knife in your back.
Well, finally, something is being done about it, at least. I think this week in the news, you found out that the Congress cut their budget by 15%. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that the government people will listen to. So it's
another thing we're going to talk about this week is we're going to talk about the IRS.
Which we didn't get to last week.
That's right.
And we promised we would.
The Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So we'll talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights.
And before we bring that up, we'll probably go into a little bit of the history of it, that how much different it was, and that the fact that 96 that the Congress worked on this actually brought about your line of business.
It's true.
That we're on the radio talking
about
today.
Without the 1996 Act, there wouldn't be any offer and compromise or installment agreements or currently not collectible status. And the IRS would run roughshod, pretty much like the Illinois Department of Revenue does here in Illinois.
That's right. And the only way that you could reach them is to have somebody in the way it used to be is anybody in government used to be afraid of the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee or the chairman of any committee. When the Democrats ran things for 40 years, you didn't get in front of them and not answer questions. You were scared to death to go in front of these committees. And now I believe the Republicans, since they're learning how to use the checkbook, and I think that using the checkbook as a bat to the IRS will probably bring about some compliance. So what we want to do is, so we have that.
And compliance is what I'm going to talk about.
And compliance is what you're talking about. And that's the blog. That's the blog entry. And we have and our question of the week was, why didn't you get to the IRS Bill of Rights? So we're going to get to that. And we'll get to, and then we'll see what else, what other time is left. But, Steve, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can contact me. My telephone number is 312-664-6649.
And the website?
The website is chicagotaxteam.com. Now, two things on chicagotaxteam.com. One is there is an IRS Radio Hour link, and you can go and listen to podcasts and hear the show. All the past shows are there on there, and also our blog is there. So there's lots of information there, and you should go and get information. If you have questions about IRS or any of the issues we talk about here, it's addressed in the blog.
You can find my obit on the Chicago Daily Observer, which would be cdobs.com. And that's where I wrote the tribute to Jack.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back, and I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy. I love that song, The Tax Man. One day we'll have to go through the words because they're funny. But very appropriate, I have to say. So one day we'll have to go through the words of that song.
After the IRS thing is settled, which is...
well, never. Never be settled.
Unless, I'll tell you.
So, on my website, I have a blog, and I write a article.
And what is the address of the website?
It's chicagotaxteam.com, and the blog's there. And again, we have the IRS Radio Hour link, and you follow that link, and you can get to the streaming or the podcasts and hear us. And you can also find it on 560theanswer.com. They have a podcast, and they have it listed there.
I was remiss in mentioning 560 The Answer in the last segment. So the fact
it's a very popular AM 560 The Answer has gotten a lot of news lately. So, but we won't talk about that. But let's talk about let's talk about the my blog this week. And this week the blog,
and what is the blog? What was the entry about?
The article is what is compliance and why is it important?
Okay.
When people come to see me, one of the first things I do, I have a big television screen, a 60-inch television, and I use it as a whiteboard. And people sit in front of the television screen. And one of the first things I do when I'm explaining how we go about solving IRS problems, I put on big letters on the top, compliance. And everybody says, what does that compliance mean? Right, so compliance is a IRS word. There's three types of compliance according to the IRS. There's filing compliance, there's reporting compliance, and then there's payment compliance. So we talk about filing compliance, and that means you file on time and you comply with their regulations. The second type is reporting compliance, and that talks about how accurate the filing is. So I might file on time, but how accurate is the filing? Is that filing? And then the third one is payment. So how often do people pay on time what they owe? So these are the three types of compliance. And whenever you're behind in the IRS to the IRS and they're coming after you to collection, this is called the collection department.
And speaking of behind, go ahead.
So the collection department in the IRS is a specific department that comes after people to collect. and I always say that they're the biggest, baddest collection agency out there because they have powers that are
far beyond that of mortal men.
That is absolutely true, unsurpassed. I think I talked about this last week, is that the federal courts have more power than them, and that's good because sometimes you can use the federal courts to protect yourself against the IRS, and that's important. And there's a tax court too. Bankruptcy can help you. Tax court, you can take these issues to a judge in tax court, and they can decide these issues whether they're right or wrong. So you're not alone. And this all happened with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights in 1996. But I get ahead of myself.
You're ahead of yourself. So what about compliance? Why is it that important?
So in order for someone with a tax problem to resolve it, before the IRS will even let you resolve it, you have to be in compliance. Okay, so that means I have to have filed all my taxes and paid my quarterly taxes if that comes due. And because if a taxpayer receives this, they get a notice of levy on wages, salary, and other income. That's the title of this form that they send you. And now this tells you, hey, we've already levied things from you. So they probably levied your bank account, or they levied your wages, or some things. I had a doctor's office, and they had levied all of the insurance companies where he received his money. So all of those insurance companies were now ordered to send every dollar that they owed this doctor to the IRS. So he had no money because that's where he got all of his money from his insurance companies. So once you get this notice of levy,
how does the notice arrive?
It arrives in the mail. So it's not, and it's not certified mail. So, but you usually get a certified mail before this. So once you get the notice of levy, it's really hard to stop that levy if you have unfiled returns, because you only have 21 days to do something. And if I have unfiled returns, before they'll even consider stopping the levy, I have to file all my back returns, and that takes time and effort and money. And try to get in compliance. So that's a big thing, getting in compliance. So one of the people come to me in my office, and they sit down and they have a big stack of mail that they receive from the IRS, and most of it's unopened. So here's my advice to people. Open the mail. Okay,
but it's scary.
I know it is scary. But it's scarier what can happen if you don't open the mail. And so before they can send a notice of levy that I mentioned earlier, they have to send you Form CP-297. Now, the IRS has a number for every form that they send, and they have a regulated sequence of letters that they send. So usually this notice of intent to levy comes certified mail. So if you get certified mail from the IRS, go get it.
And then when you wake up after passing out, if you sign for it, what do you do? Should I call a lawyer right away?
You should call. So should
I just give up?
No, you have to call somebody right away. Now, because this notice of intent to levy, it gives you 30 days to file an appeal. So you can file an appeal and stop the levy. Now, sometimes the appeal can take months, many months to resolve. So while you're resolving that, while that appeal is pending, you can go back and finish all your taxes and get everything ready and try to fight that levy so they never institute the levy. And that's the important thing. Mm-hmm. Stop the levy from ever being issued. Once it's issued, it's harder to stop. Now, we stop them all the time, and that's a big part of our work. Is a lot of times people don't do anything until they get a notice of levy and they don't get a paycheck, and then they have to move. Now, if you're not getting a paycheck and they're stopping they're going after your bank account, hard to hire a lawyer because you don't have any money, and lawyers generally want money. And they cost. So you want
I'll just
to
be quiet on it.
So you want to do that before you get a levy. That's ideally that's what you want to do. Now, often people don't do that. They wait too long. Don't wait too long. Open your mail. That's my biggest thing. Now, once you resolve your IRS problem, again, we talked about how to do that. You can get an installment agreement. You can get an offer in compromise. You can get currently not collectible status. Any of these remedies, one of the agreements with the IRS is you have to stay in compliance. So I had someone in my office this week about 941 taxes, and we were talking, and they said, well,
what's 941 taxes?
That's what we talked about last week, which is payroll taxes. So this is business, okay, and they're payroll tax issues. And I asked them, well, do you have any personal issues? Oh, we did, but we have an installment agreement with the IRS, so that's been taken care of. And I said, well, did you file your 2013? Oh, we filed an extension. And I had to break the news to him that an extension means you're not in compliance. And if you're not in compliance, the agreement's broken and your installment agreement is over. Okay, so then they're back in collections. And this is what a lot of people don't understand, and that's why compliance is so important. So it's important to get to fix the problem, but once you fix the problem, you're promising to the IRS that no matter what happens from here on out, I'm going to stay in compliance. So I've had people come to me, and they had a great offer and compromise. So they owed a lot of money, and the IRS settled for a little bit of money, but they didn't file their taxes the next year, and so the offer and compromise was rescinded. And they don't have the offer and compromise anymore, and they're back in collections. So this is a huge thing. Compliance is so important. Again, before you can solve the problem, and then after you solve the problem.
No matter how bad this sounds, this is 100% better than it used to be. And we're going to get into that in this next part. But, the funny thing about the word compliance is you find out that 85% of the American people are voluntarily in compliance.
That's right. The IRS calls it a tax gap, and this is what they use all the time to justify in stepping up enforcement. And I think Senator Schumer this last week brought up again they want to hire private firms to go after people. Now this has been brought up many times in Congress and shot down many times, and they keep bringing it up. And I think it's because some law firms that, ironically, from New York, that would be in front of, would be in
Not
charge
Senator
of this.
Schumer.
No.
He's on one of our infamous Senate lists that we're going to be reading off later on.
So in my office, we also have what we call the IRS Protection Plan, which helps people stay in compliance once you solve the problem. That's almost as big as solving the problem.
Your office, how would somebody get in touch with your office?
So if you have an IRS problem, you should call me at 312-664-6649.
Or
visit my website at chicagotaxteam.com.
Is there any other way?
Yeah, you can. If you have a specific question, you can always email me at questions@irsradio.com. And remember, you can visit my blog. There's lots of information there, and that's also at chicagotaxteam.com.
They can also hear this show on...
that's right. That's right. We're here every Sunday at 5 o'clock, AM 560, The Answer.
See you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy. Last segment, we talked about IRS compliance and how important it is. And this segment, we talk about IRS compliance with Congress.
That's right. And this is part of our ongoing saga.
As the IRS turns.
As you all remember, last week...
last week's episode,
we found out that the IRS had sent 110 million pages of people's...
I don't think it was 110 million, but it was a million.
1.1 million pages.
It might as well have been 10 million because
they didn't read it, so it didn't really matter.
That's right. Yeah.
But 1.1 million pages of documents of people's personal their taxes, their
it was actually the applications for the 501c3 C4
yes,
status.
What did they ask? Those people were asked about the religious beliefs,
and
what they read, who
true.
Gave them money, what they were going to spend money on.
We also talked last week. We talked about the 9 senators. There's a complaint,
9 senators, and we will, and they are on the list of. One is our own Senator Durbin, Senator Levin, Senator Schumer, Senator Franken, Senator Sheehan, Senator Udall, Senator Whitehouse, Senator Bennett, and Senator Merkley. Those are all those senators. I want everybody out there to remember them. These are the people who are writing letters to the IRS to have them go after private citizens and because of their political beliefs and to be able to make people stop trying to form groups. They went after groups with names of Patriot in them and anything with Tea Party and
because
Patriot.
That's a very nefarious. How dare anybody be a patriot?
And then even something with the word tax in it. They went after those. So what we want to do this week is explain on Friday.
Well, I think this is a bigger problem than the IRS. My own opinion is I think it's a bigger problem than the IRS. I think this.
It's a rogue agency.
I think the Washington Redskins thing is also part of this whole thing. Is that people in government have decided that you shouldn't have this name, and so I would like to see the emails to the Patent and Trade Commission about who ordered them to stop their trademarks. And that's the hand of government that's squishing anybody who doesn't agree with them.
As we say, we are here from Chicago, so most of us know the government here in Chicago loves to use the levers of government for power. And if in fact in the city of Chicago or Cook County you would put up a sign against your alderman, sometimes the alderman doesn't like that, and you will have people coming to check your property. Mm-hmm. And and
if you're a restaurant, you'll have a lot of inspectors.
You'll have inspectors. There's a great story that I'll tell one day when we have enough time about Mayor Daley and the and how he used it.
Which one?
The old Mayor Daley. It's kind of a funny one because of the old Mayor Daley. Anyway, what we'd like to talk about today is there was on Friday there was finally a hearing where the chairman of the IRS, Mr. what's his name? Koskinen,
yes,
was brought in front of Congress and he was grilled, and he was actually grilled. And Paul Ryan, who was kind of mushy, some people think, but I have to give him credit.
When you
kudos.
say some people, do you mean you, Jim?
Oh, no, not me. Well, a little bit. Anyway, I have to give him kudos on his on what he did. The IRS commissioner, Mr. Koskinen, said, "How you're questioning my integrity?"
What he said was, I've had a long career, and nobody ever said they didn't believe me.
And Paul Ryan said, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you.
There seems to be, we found out
what didn't he believe, Jim? Because
he doesn't believe it. Yes, we haven't gotten to it yet. They seem to try to tell us that Ms. Lerner, all of her emails in the time that we're questioning have now disappeared. Not only hers, but the 6 other people who we're looking into, their computers seem to have crashed. And they sent the hard drives in to be rehabbed. They say that now the IRS...
But now they've been recycled.
Yes.
Which is not rehab at all.
Yeah, and recycled. They say that we will never come up with these. So, could you imagine telling the IRS, Steve, I don't have those. Well,
this is what I was just going to say, Jim. I think if we go back and we talk about last segment, we talked about compliance and how important it is with the IRS to be in compliance. And so now they're being grilled by Congress to be in compliance with their requests. And their answer is, well, we can't find everything. They were destroyed.
They knew a year ago, and still they didn't tell Congress. Now you're going in front of this is supposed to be checks and balances, and that's what Congress does. And this is what stops the agency from going rogue. And the fact that they think that they're above the law and that they cannot go in front, that they can tell Congress whatever they want. And now that we find a letter today that says that they've known that these emails and this hard drives have been crashed.
Well, goes back to this because what you're saying, we talk about my clients who need to be in compliance and how difficult it is. Here's the IRS being grilled by Congress who says, I don't have to do this. And this is how they are when people are in trouble. I can do whatever I want. I can ask you for anything. I can ask you what's in your prayers, and you have to tell me. But when it's my turn, I don't have to tell you anything.
Well, we can't get to all this right now, but Steve, tell them how we can get in touch with you.
Well, you can call me at 312-664-6649. If the IRS is coming after you, remember, they think they don't have any rules. Let's keep the rules applying. So to protect you, you got to contact an attorney.
And you need to know your rights.
Absolutely. So get me at chicagotaxteam.com. Send me a question at questions@irsradiohour.com.
And we're at AM 560, The Answer.
See you on the other side.
Hey, that's mine.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy. There's that song again, Taxman. Love that song. What are we going to talk about this segment, Jim?
Well, Steve, this is the listener question segment, and last week we said we were going to talk about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights,
and we didn't.
And we did not. So what we're going to, so someone called and said, hey, you didn't talk about the Listener Bill of Rights. So that was written in there. So what
the listeners don't have a Bill of Rights, Jim. It's the
taxpayer bill. The listeners do. We care about the listeners.
I do, but they're
all taxpayers.
But I'm not writing any Bill of Rights for them.
No, they're all taxpayers.
They have the right to listen every Sunday at 5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock. I'm The Answer.
AM 560, The Answer.
That's so anyway, we did.
Oh, they also have the right to call me, and they can call me at 312-664-6649.
Silly segues.
or they can visit my website at chicagotaxteam.com. So those are your rights as a listener.
All right, so let's get to these Taxpayer Bill of Rights so that we can get to them because we've mentioned them a couple times today.
Okay, so the Taxpayer Bill of Rights on last week, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago now, that they were talking about the IRS issued the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And there's a taxpayer advocate. Now, the Taxpayer Advocate's Office was created in the 1996 Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And this was supposed to be an independent department of the IRS that people can go to for help. So if they think the IRS is being unreasonable or not helping resolve a problem, then you contact the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The Taxpayer Advocate's Office. The head of the Taxpayer Advocate's Office is Nina Olson, and she says, she's been trying to get this Taxpayer Bill of Rights for some time, for many years. Matter of fact, it was her top priority for her office. And she says, Congress has passed multiple pieces of legislation with the title Taxpayer Bill of Rights, Olson said. However, taxpayer surveys conducted by my office have found that most taxpayers do not believe they have rights before the IRS, and even fewer can name their rights. I believe that the list of core taxpayer rights the IRS is announcing today will help taxpayers better understand their rights in dealing with the tax system. So what they're talking about is this Taxpayer Bill of Rights, not really anything new.
No, she's just articulating it.
That's right. These are the rights you've always had, but let's write them down so people understand what they are, and then we're going to send you, because when you have IRS problems, you'll find that they do not skimp on paper. They sent you plenty of paper, and so now they're going to send you something else. So there's 10 issues on the Bill of Rights. First is you have a right to be informed. You have a right to quality service. You have a right to pay no more than the correct amount of tax.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, I know. You have a right to challenge the IRS's position and be heard.
They don't have to listen, but we can.
That's right. You have a right to appeal an IRS decision in an independent forum. You have a right to finality. You have a right to privacy. You have a right to confidentiality. You have a right to retain representation. This is a key one, right?
So that's key.
And I think on my three, if you go to my website, I have the 3 things you should never tell the IRS. One of those things is you should never tell something that you don't know, and you have a right to representation, so you can always stop them anywhere you are. Say, you know what? I think I need a lawyer, and I think I shouldn't answer your questions very much. Let's go. Let me get a lawyer. So you have a right to representation. You have a right to a fair and just tax system, including access to the Taxpayer Advocate Service. So it's funny that the Taxpayer Advocate Service would want to get that out.
She's setting the bar awful low. I think if this is her,
I have to.
This is her goal, though. I mean, to put that in, these are already there.
I agree. It's my top goal is to write these down and send them to you. No new rules.
Yeah.
At least in 1996 when they changed with the Taxpayer Bill of Rights.
Wait. Let's finish the how many?
That's it. That was
so. The last one was.
The last one was the right to a fair and just tax system.
Okay. Now 6 and 7 were one is confidentiality, right? Is that
one? No, that's not one, but it's listed as confidentiality.
Yeah, confidentiality,
privacy,
and the other one was privacy, which were broken last week when they sent all that information over to the FBI. Where is our taxpayer?
Well, I like the Taxpayer Bill of Rights here because a lot of this people don't know it. You know why they don't know it is because the IRS doesn't follow it.
Yeah.
If they followed it, then people wouldn't need to know it because they would follow it. If I could be informed, if I had a right to representation, all of this, as he said, these are nothing new. These are things that have already been implemented.
Well, actually, they came about in the 1996
that's right,
Congress,
in the Taxpayer Bill of Rights,
who brought the IRS to them to change a lot of this, as we said today. A lot of the stuff that you're talking about doing for people couldn't have been done
without that actual Taxpayer Bill of Rights statute, which implemented actual new rights. This does not. There's nothing new here. There's nothing. So if you think that the IRS was oppressive or not listening to you, or nothing's changed. They're not going to change what they do. They're just telling you here's what your rights are. We're going to write it down and send it to you. So So again, most people who come to see me, they're hitting a wall.
Steve, if they need to talk to you, how would they get to you?
So if you're hitting a wall with the IRS and they're coming after you, you need help, you should call me. And my telephone number is 312-664-6649.
And then what about the website?
The website is chicagotaxteam.com. You can send me a question. So if you have a question about the IRS, send me a question at questions@irsradio.com.
And we'll bring them on to the show.
That's right. And we're here every Sunday at 5 o'clock on AM 560, The Answer. And we're going to be here next week. And so, again,
and the week after.
That's right.
The week after.
So if you have questions, you should call me. I think this Taxpayer Bill of Rights is good, but it's not enough.
We're going to go into the history. We'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
And welcome back. You know, I think today's show is we put it all together in that if you put all these pieces together, we talked about compliance, we talked about the IRS saga, we talked about the taxpayer bill of rights, and you kind of put all this together in that we have a rogue agency out there.
This is the problem, and the fact as we brought up before, we have 85 or above compliance with the American people.
It's funny that you're touting that as a success. The IRS touts that number as proof.
As people said, what free people would invent an agency like this who could flip your life over because they feel like it? Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact is, maybe if they weren't as rogue as they are, we would have more compliance. The fact is, when people start hating something or they start resenting something, they're going to go away from it.
I appreciate that position, and I just read a paper written by the IRS who refuted that position. But what I think is...
Well, they think that they should scare everybody into compliance?
Well, I think that even if they were easier, people still wouldn't comply. It's got nothing to do with how hard it is or how high the tax rate is, because there is some evidence that the higher the tax rate, the less the compliance. But they refute that. They say that's not true. But I think it's just common sense.
I don't know. The fact is they just passed a record amount of money that they've brought in.
You know, I wanted to mention something else this week, though, because I had a call this week regarding something we were talking about last time, which is imputing income to you. And this was a case about the Illinois Department of Revenue. And this was a widget, so I don't want to talk about exactly what kind of commodity it was. But it was a commodity store that sold basically one thing, widgets. And what happened, the Illinois Department of Revenue came in and they audited all of their vendors. And this is what I'm getting at, is really about record keeping. Most people, small businesses, individuals, 1099 employees, they're not keeping good enough records
until they get audited. And this is so very important, because if you get audited and you don't have any records, they will take the worst position possible. Unlike what's going, and this is why it's so ironic what's going on in Congress, and that's why we're talking about it a lot, because what the IRS is doing is exactly opposite of what you can do. Okay, so if you came up and said, all my records were destroyed, and and they said, well, you have to keep records for 7 years. You can't just, if you don't have them, then we're gonna take that as evidence that you're trying to hide something. That's right.
Because I think when they come after you, all auditors think you're lying to begin with. Well, so they're not trying to say, well, let's see if there's something wrong. They're saying, where is what's wrong? And I'm going to find it. And they're going to go through it and find it. And in this case that I was just talking about, and this is not the IRS, but the Illinois Department of Revenue. And I have to mention that the Illinois Department of Revenue does not have a taxpayer bill of rights.
No, they don't. And I don't see them in front of any a panel or any committee asking why they're being so rough.
So this gentleman who was selling widgets, he's been doing it for 20 years, and now he has a bill for $200,000 that he owes. Most of it penalties and interest. And it's devastating, and probably the business is not going to survive.
And I'm dying. And
he's went through. He's had the administrative hearing, but again, if you don't have records, you're going to lose. So you have to keep records,
and we have to make sure that we hold these people in government to hold their feet to the fire,
same as we are. And so we want to remember Jack Roser.
Yes, we do. Thanks for everything, Jack.
We want to remember Debbie, our producer. She's just terrific.
And thanks for everything, Debbie. And we'll see you next Sunday. At what time, Steve, do you think?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. And how can people get in touch with you, Steve?
312-664-6649, ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
Okay.
AM 560, The Answer. See you next week.